That was the best acting I've ever seen in my whole life.
Like you.
Había una vez en Hollywood, o érase que se era. Llega hoy a los cines de nuestro país. Se trata de la novena cinta de Quentin Tarantino. Novena y penúltima, según dicho por él. Platiqué con él en la ciudad de Los Ángeles, allá en California, no solamente sobre esta historia, sino el resto de su carrera, de sus películas y lo que hay en el fondo. Esto fue lo que me dijo. Quentin Tarantino, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This is your penultimate film, said by yourself.
Yeah.
So start talking.
Where do you want me to start?
I suppose that if you already said that it's your penultimate film, that the list one, list before the list.
Yeah, the last before the last.
What's the main theme that Tarantino wants to deliver to people?
That's a good question. I don't know if I have the answer to that. That's a good question. I don't know if I have a good answer to that. I chose, every movie I did, I chose to make. I didn't do it for a job. I didn't do it, I all did it for, they were all purposely coming from me for whatever reason. And I think a situation can happen that after when you look at a career that's done like that, with that kind of purpose, you can make a case that all the movies are creating one movie.
Of course.
Yeah, to some degree, like each movie is like it's a boxcar in a big train set or something like that. And so I think that when it comes to that, I think that this movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, this would be the big climax. This would be the big show-stopping climax of that one big giant movie. And I think that 10th movie might be a little bit more epilogue-y, a little bit more kind of, okay, the climax is over, and now a little thoughtful repose.
Are you an actor?
No, I'm a stuntman.
So you still with Rick, huh? Still here.
You can do anything you want to him.
What would be the common line between all your movies reaching your list, but no, the penultimate one?
Well, you know, I'm not really the person to say that. I think it's more people examining my career saying that. I mean, I'll say one thing that has never been a purposeful thing that I have tried to do in my movies, but it's happened in almost every one, so I guess it must be this theme that I have of my characters are all good actors.
Of course.
Now, in this movie, it's actually about an actor, right? And how good he is almost part of the issue of the film. But the point being, though, is there is a situation in, I think, every movie that I've ever made where the lead character themselves, you can call it some of my movies have lead characters, the lead characters put on some masquerade. They pretend to be somebody they're not for purposes. And they're usually really good at it. They're usually really good at pretending to be who they're not. And so this whole thing of masquerade, this whole thing of being an actor and performing it, but like literally in a situation like Tim Roth's teacher in The Cop Teacher, teaches him how to be an undercover cop, in Reservoir Dogs, says, hey, you know, there's good acting and there's bad acting. In this business, bad acting gets you killed. And so I actually think that if there's one link, there's this whole thing of people performing and people pulling on a masquerade, but their life is in the balance.
Perhaps all humans, we are using masquerades, and I was thinking about it with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that there's always a background story, like in this case, the Manson family story. There's always a background story in our biographies.
Yeah. Oh no, I think so, and I think there is an aspect when if you just look at like the biography of Los Angeles, you know, at that time. I mean, to me, this movie is trying to look at Hollywood in two different ways. It's looking at Hollywood as an industry and Hollywood as a town that people live in, and they're not exactly the same thing. But I think as far as the town is, people have said that this is Quentin Tarantino's love letter to Hollywood. Well, it might be my love letter to the town. It's not necessarily my love letter to the industry per se, but I would say to the town it kind of is. Nevertheless, you had this exciting period of time of this counterculture revolution going on culturally in Los Angeles, and Los Angeles was actually embracing it in a big way. I mean, never before and never since have, when it comes to the industry, have like studio executives and agents wore their hair long and wore Nehru jackets, left their three-piece suits at home, wore love beads. I mean, executives would commonly wear love beads, and agents would wear love beads at that time, and all that went away. You know, but the thing is, though, the Manson family almost represents, like, imagine a beautiful oil painting of Los Angeles, but the Manson family is sort of like a mildew that's kind of crept into the canvas of the painting itself, and that mildew is little by little creeping in on the town.
Perhaps it's your canvas, you know, like maybe Tarantino is like having painting a canvas for a long lifetime, and perhaps I have the impression that you have been looking all the time to the core of human cruelty, human violence, that it's even in the most beautiful soul, perhaps.
No, there is an aspect of I don't know what I've come up with yet. All right, I don't think I found any conclusions, but I have explored the concept of violence, both violence as entertainment and violence as a as a realistic, even tragedy that happens in life. And I have explored it. I've explored its different effects, and I've explored its different meanings, and its effect on both people and an audience. All right, and I presented it this way, and the audience reacts that way. I presented it this way, and they react that way. And then I even tried to mitigate their responses to some degree, making it either more complicated or more fun, depending on the situation, depending on the scene, depending on what other experiment I want to try.
I'm Sharon Tate. I'm in the movie.
You're in this?
That's me. I play Miss Carlson, the klutz.
Es Quentin Tarantino, es Tarantino, y esta es su penúltima película. ¿Usted cree que yo iba a desaprovechar la oportunidad de hacerle todas estas preguntas? ¿Y qué cree? Todavía hay más, porque al regresar había una vez en Hollywood, pero también en México había una vez en Roma, por ejemplo, de Alfonso Cuarón. Tarantino nos cuenta qué exactamente en la segunda parte de esta conversación que tuve con él. Érase que se era o había una vez en Hollywood. ¿Tiene algo en común con Roma de Alfonso Cuarón? Pues cheque lo que me dijo su creador, Quentin Tarantino.
It's official, old buddy. And it has been.
Your quest, because it's all your movies that talk about, your quest is like pointing at some point at intelligence, at some point at just luck and just chance, and at some point just like watching the evil born in any situation for any human being. What do you think about your quest for evil and violence and cruelty in human souls, even with the eyes of humor, you know? It's...
Well, I think that I think if there is, if I was writing a college dissertation piece on me, I mean, I think one of the absolute aspects of it is getting me to, that I'm always trying to do is to get audiences to laugh at things that are messed up, all right, things that basically aren't funny in life. I like to present them and then present them in this bizarre, humorous way, all right, that actually gets you to laugh at the absurdity of it all.
I remember that you and me were chatting in Morelia, Michoacán 10 years ago, and we were talking about violence, burning violence in that time in Mexico, and you told me exactly that we were talking about what was happening in Mexico, and you said, like, there was no way to love at what was happening in Mexico.
Yeah, no, well, when we were talking about what was going on there, I did not see a way into it. But again, I'm not a Mexican citizen. If I was, all right, and I knew exactly what I was talking about, I actually probably think I would be able to see a way into the social fabric or the absurdity of a situation. I don't know, I'm just guessing.
In these days, with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, you were talking about my fellow Mexican Alfonso Cuarón, and you said like it was like the same kind of approach, nostalgic approach that Alfonso had with Roma, that you were having with Los Angeles in Once Upon a Time.
Well, to a very large degree, his movie was the one that actually that seemed the closest from where I was kind of coming from, because we were kind of coming from a very similar place. We were looking at a milieu, an environment, and a social fabric that at 6 or 7 we didn't quite understand, but but we were immersed in it. We're watching it, and you have a good memory for 6 or 7. You can remember things back then, and so there is an aspect in telling this story. We're trying to make sense of it now, as we're adults. What we learned there. Now it's one thing to make an historical piece. That's what that is. It's another thing to make a memory piece. And I actually think that both my movie and Alfonso's movie fall into the memory piece category. And what's the difference? Well, if I'm making absolutely something completely historical, then everything is going to be, for the most part, completely historical. I have all the right information. Unless I really want to change it for a dramatic reason, I'm gonna play it that way. But a memory piece can be more fluid, because memory is more fluid. It's not about history. It's about your memory of history.
It's emotional.
It's emotional. It's emotional. So it's like, you remember something that happened to you at 6, but maybe you were 8 at the time. You don't have it completely together. But a memory piece allows you to be more fluid with it, and to be, like I said, more emotional, less newspaper factual. Even though there's a lot of newspaper factual stuff in it.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, a fairy tale.
Yeah.
Once Upon a Time. Is there always a nightmare, a background nightmare in every fairy tale?
I think every fairy tale I can think of, actually, there absolutely is a nightmare background. I mean, the Brothers Grimm are the Brothers Grimm, all right? And Hans Christian Andersen could, keep Stephen King up at night, right? If you really dwell on some of the things that he talked about. And one of the things about fairy tales, in particular, is the villains in fairy tales are usually truly monstrous. I mean, like beyond the beyond, as far as what these characters have to deal with.
And do you think there is no monsters? In fact, just Charles Manson, the character in the background in this your penultimate film. But you have been obsessed with monsters. A little bit.
Well, I mean,
and revenge against monsters.
Yeah, like I mean. I take it where you're coming from, but I could also equally say, look, I also deal in genre cinema. All right, I like genre cinema, and genre cinema has good guys and it has bad guys, and I've invested in those type of characters.
Thank you very much, Quentin Tarantino. It's amazing. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's now going on cinemas on Mexico City, so we hope like everybody can enjoy it.
I hope so too.
We missed you at Mexico.
I know. I'm sorry. I hurt my back when I was in Russia, and so the studio actually gave me a break. They were like, I was going to go, and they were, look, you've been all over the world. Just give it a break. You give yourself a week to recuperate. So I really appreciate it. But I feel bad that I missed the Mexico trip. Me and Brad were looking forward to going together.
We wait you as soon as possible. Y de verdad un personaje delicioso, con una calidad de gente impresionante y completamente afable. Había una vez en Hollywood una entrevista con Quentin Tarantino.
Imagen Noticias con Yuriria Sierra, lunes a viernes 2 p.m. Participa en Imagen Televisión.